Hello, everybody, and welcome to CCA Summer Series 2024. I wish I had sunglasses. That'd be cool. Mine broke though. Welcome back. I'm Shu. I was a CRL statistician. I do a lot of analysis. Actually, I did really well with my qualifier predictions, so I have credibility. Here are my Summer Series 24 predictions. Basically, I just ranked the teams in each conference. I have colors. So top two, which are the ones that make upper bracket in the championships, are purple. 3 through 6 are green, make the lower bracket championships. Everyone else out. We're going to be going from bottom to top. Not going to lie, this is my second recording because my microphone breaks randomly and does a really funny voice. But let's just get right into it because I don't want to have to do this again. East, Syracuse are on bottom. I'm sorry, guys. Um, Basically, Syracuse, I don't think are as great of a roster as people are saying. Gababy is coming in, the new super starter, but compared to the East, he's not that super, not gonna lie. And Syracuse are not known for their being so good. Um, I think I should also say that any team that I have played and beaten before, I may have a negative bias against, and I have beaten Syracuse in Summer Series last year. Um, but now Baby does fill in for no, my name's Patrick, or no, this is Patrick. So they're better than before, but I still have them like 17th through 20th. I think they had a lucky bracket, which just happens with seeding sometimes. But I do have Syracuse 16th and 15th. I have Shawnee State. I think that this might be the lowest that Shawnee will honestly go. But I think that these players are past their prime. This is nearly just Indian River State, and they were really good at one point, really good. Um, but I think that they're reaching the end of the road, and that's just where I'll put what just happened. I don't know what just happened, but Akron Gold is 14th. Um, Akron Gold, Oxy now in for Trevor. They actually had a really amazing end of CRL Fall 2023, but I just don't know if they can replicate it, especially with the East getting even stronger and kind of consolidating since. And then 13th, I have Brewton-Parker. Brewton-Parker is a really hard team because they either peak or they slump, and there's no in between. And that makes them really hard to predict. Because it just matters on who they beat on the given day. So I'm just going to put them 13th because I think that they're just there. Durham are honestly, I think, a little low. Even though I made this 12th for Durham, I think is the most fair because these are really solid players. Their names give them more credit, I think, than 12th place. But on qualifier day, they just were not that. I think especially their defense was very lackluster. They were all over the place with it. And I don't think that that kind of defense can garner anything higher. Honestly, I could see Brewton-Parker and Akron over them. And then 11 is Illinois State, which are literally just a slightly better Brewton-Parker because they have no mansion. Um, they are the exact same though. The other two players will just peak on the day, and they can beat so many good teams, but they don't do it often enough that we can really rely on them. I know Illinois State in the fall had like this massive like start. I don't remember who they beat. They beat a really good team at the start, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, they're so good," and all this stuff. And then they just started losing to worse teams, and everyone was like, "Oh, okay." Anyways, number 10 is Kennesaw State, which, according to Tehan from George Mason, is just a better Illinois State. So you have Kennesaw State, Illinois State, Brewton-Parker, which are all basically just the same team. So I'm putting them near each other. I actually did have Kennesaw State slightly higher, but looking at things now, they didn't do so great in the fall. They did have a roster change, so Parson is now sub. Don't remember their name, but not someone I recognize. So I don't think they're that much better. So I'm putting them 10th. 9th is Southern Miss. Southern Miss is a really hard one because this is three really good players but they have strong personalities. I mean, Melodic, Zath, Astro. If you've been in the collegiate scene, you know what I'm talking about. All three of these players, they just have strong personalities, and when you put three players with that kind of personality in a room together, you're either going to get greatness or they're going to fight each other to the death or something. And so I think when it comes to most of the teams, at least below them, Southern Miss should just wipe the board. But when it comes to the teams above them, the moment that you really put them under pressure, I think that Southern Miss are going to crack. And I see that really messing with them. And so that's why I think they're ninth. I think they might lose to a team or two below them, like Kennesaw, Illinois, Brewton-Parker, but there'll also be a couple teams above them, like maybe a Stockton. Stockton, again, really good players. I'm wary of this eighth place because Stockton has been known in the past to have a good roster and then not perform with it. So it's a little bit hard to tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Then 7 Ole Miss. Honestly, I had Ole Miss lower. Then I remembered that Kennesaw weren't that amazing. Ole Miss is a hard roster, and I think it comes down to this is a weird team, weird players. Like qualifier 1, Lunar was in Colorado and apparently didn't tell his teammates that he was in Colorado and they DQ'd. How do you not tell your teammates that you're in another state during a qualifier day? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. And pulling stuff like that, I can't imagine that this roster is going to be able to pull it together to make it to top 6, especially with such good teams in top 6. I mean, we're talking like a Fisher here, 3 solid players, some imports from across the pond. They hopefully will work. I think Fisher is kind of just throwing 3 really good players together and hoping it works. So Fisher, this is kind of a middle spot for them. I think they could be maybe a couple places higher, possibly down to like 9th. So this is a really middle spot for them. I felt like it was fair to give them 6th because it's like, hey, you're making playoffs, but you're going to be the worst team to do it. Because you have teams like Davenport above, where Davenport, I think, similar to Fisher, but not. I mean, 3 players got thrown together that are really solid, really good, but Davenport, I mean, their staff have been showing up on, Twitter, social media, for all their hard work. Like they are putting in the work. So I have to imagine that Davenport, the staff know what they're doing, and building a roster that's actually going to function together. I mean, they looked good in qualifiers. They got swept by Northwood. I don't blame them for that. And then they beat Southern Miss 3-1 in the lower bracket of qualifier 1. That's a pretty good result. Pretty solid result. And so I see them doing decently. Then number 4, Ball State. Now, Ball State's a hard one because in the fall, they looked solid. They looked good. And then you go to like the championships of the fall and they're like, oh, they're ramping up a bit. And then you had the spring where they were crushing it. I know they won a land by beating Boise State. So it's like, we'll see. This is where it just gets tough for it because you have a team like Akron Blue, where Akron Blue literally made the RLCS, and then Tristan graduated, so he's sub currently, but basically he's not playing. And then they picked up 5-Up, who's arguably better than Tristan. And I think the big thing about Akron Blue is that the other players on this roster have a lot of respect, I think, for their teammates. I think 5-Up will as well. And so I think that they're a team that doesn't need time to have cohesion. I think they're going to click instantly. So I think Akron Blue is going to pick up exactly where they left off. They're going to do just as well, if not better, than they did personally. But you do have, of course, West Virginia and number 1, Northwood, because it's Northwood. But I think 2 through 4 is a complete mix-up. Those are going to be the 3 teams really fighting for second. Maybe you could throw in 5 through 7 in there. But then you have 5th through, I'd say, as low as 9th, fighting for those last 2 spots for 5 and 6. That is my Eastern predictions. While we're in the middle of this, go ahead, comment below. Tell me your thoughts on the Eastern Conference. Pause the video. Don't worry about it. Take your time. Let me know what you really think while you're down there. Like and subscribe. I'm going to be trying to do this every week. Um, although in 2 weeks it's going to be late because I have a trip. Western Conference. West is hard. West is chaotic. The East, like at least it's hard because they're all good teams. The West, I just have no idea what I'm doing anymore, and I live here. I live in the West. I've been like studying the West for years, and I just can never know how this is going to go. 16 Oregon State. The fact that they're here in the first place is just absolutely insane to me. Honestly, I think that they peaked. I think they peaked on a day because they lose to Oklahoma Christian in the semifinals of their bracket. Then they sweep Utah, which is like, yeah, it's Utah. They sweep UT Dallas, who made it here over UNLV, and they sweep UT Arlington, although I don't know who UT Arlington's actual roster is. Um, because it's some mix of Random Shy, Caribou, Nava, and Adverse. I think Nava's supposed to be the sub, but I don't actually know right now. So Caribou, if you're watching, DM me what your actual roster is, because I might not be giving you guys an accurate result because I put you 15th. UT Arlington, they did lose to Oregon State, and that's not great, especially in a sweep. But I can chalk it up to Oregon State having a single peak day. They're never going to do that again, I don't think. UT Arlington, though, they're kind of at this weird stage to where the old guard are still there, but the new guard are moving in, and no one has the reins yet. So I think UT Arlington, they just need time to figure out who is actually in charge of this roster, who's going to step up. Because with Adverse and Nava leaving and Caribou and Random Shy moving in, I feel like it's kind of just a little bit of a mess currently, and they just have to get time to figure it out. And in the meantime, Grand Canyon, I think, is going to make it through past them, but only at 14th. Grand Canyon, I think, also kind of Mickey, not going to lie. Big things. So they got swept by St. Edwards. It's basically an insanely similar result to Oregon State, except they kind of did worse. But I think the better team than Oregon State. They beat Sacramento State, UBC Gold in 5, and then against Oregon in 4. Oregon had 2 subs for that match. It was literally only imminent. There was no Siebes, no 1Zen. So Grand Canyon really had the Mickey bracket, unlike Oregon State. So Grand Canyon, honestly, I think just shouldn't be here. But I think that they're better than Oregon State. I think that while UT Arlington has some struggles, Grand Canyon might take a win over them. That's why I had them over. Then we have UT Dallas, a team that, again, probably shouldn't be here. They get swept by Oregon State in qualifier 1, then in qualifier 2, they lose to UNLV, but then they come back. Ironically, Sacramento State comes up again. And then they beat UNLV in game 5, which honestly just shouldn't have happened. But you've Luby, Dalton, and Zora, they're not bad players. They can do pretty well. I don't think they will. Sorry, Luby. I'm doubting you for like the 3rd time in the last month. So now Luby's going to see this, tweet at me, get fake mad, and then beat up teams above them like Colorado. See you, Boulder. I think that this is one where I might be biased in their favor because I live in Colorado and they're really cool guys. But Colorado's a weird team. Just tonight when I'm recording this, which is the night before it comes out, Colorado played in CCS, the Collegiate Conference Series, and they won it. They won the whole thing, which is awesome. But they got taken to Game 7 a lot. They got taken to Game 7 in their final match against Oregon, which only had Imminent and Siebes, did not have 1Zen because this was like a kind of mix of spring and summer, so it had spring rosters. And then they were also taken to Game 7 by Tennessee, who's kind of in that like maybe top 24 East. But then they also got sent to Game 7 by Jax State, as in like Jacksonville, Florida. Not the best roster. I think Colorado were also trying to freestyle on them in the first couple games and lost because of that. But Colorado kind of just plays to the team that they like plays to their opponent. So I think that they're going to play up to some of the teams above them and honestly maybe take those teams down a notch but I think they're also going to lose to one or two of these teams below them. Um, and Colorado, honestly, I could see them losing multiple to the teams below them. This is, I think, maybe an optimistic prediction for me for Colorado. Then we have Lubbock Christian, and this is, I think, really where my bias as an actual player comes in, because I had a sub in for CRL fall of last year, and I played Lubbock Christian, and I beat Lubbock Christian. How am I beating Lubbock Christian? Like, I'm a KBM player. I'm not actually that good. I didn't even get carried. I feel like I actually played pretty solidly in that one. But Lubbock Christian, Royal's not there anymore. Is Schmacked, Processed, and Snow. I don't know who Snow is, but I'm pretty sure he's not better than Royal. Lubbock Christian actually got 12th in the West. So they technically got an upgrade, but not really by much. I don't see them doing much better. Borrego's Monterey, they look solid. I think this matters on if Karma's actually playing the entire summer, because he didn't play Qual 1, but then he started scrimming with them and played Qual 2. You just have to question, is Karma playing? If so, they're going to do decently, but I think ping is going to be a little bit of an issue for them being in Mexico and all. Kansas, number 9. Kansas, put a little asterisk next to them because it all matters on their third player. Because you have Sauce, you have Spade, but their third and Chura is a big question mark. Chura's been a pretty busy guy in CCS for the last month. He hasn't been playing too much because it's either work or school or both. I don't actually know, but low hours, busy with just real life, which is completely valid. But then their substitute Alpaca made them lose to Purdue, which is not good. Alpaca, I'm sorry, he's not at that same level. If Kansas plays with Alpaca, they're looking at 15th. Chur is supposed to play, but Spade couldn't give me a sure answer because Chur is just going to be busy sometimes. And if they get to the point where it's like, oh, we have to play with Alpaca or forfeit, you're not allowed to forfeit, so they're going to have to play with Alpaca. In that case, that's a hypothetical. They would be 15th, but 9th, Kansas, I think maybe good. San Diego State 8th. New pickup, Zapatos. Fun fact, means shoes in Spanish. So little bit of brownie points for them, but in all seriousness, they picked up Zapatos, placing Aquino, which I think even he would agree is the worst player on his roster. So you change the worst player for debatably the best player on the entire roster now. San Diego State, I think, are going to look pretty solid in it, in all honesty. Then you have Oregon, Wunzen, Eminent, Siebes. 3 players that are decently well known in CRL. I don't think that they're like too well known, but they have a lot of experience. I think that at least Eminent and Siebes have a lot of great chemistry together. I have to hope that Wunzen fits in well with them. If so, they're going to do really well, but not as well as the top 6 teams. Oklahoma Christian in 6th. You may be noticing that there's a team that a lot of people would not or would have already listed by now that I have not, which is where I think the West might get a little weird. Basically, North is now in for Chicken. I think North was playing for them in the spring as well. I think that they're just not going to be able to do it against a lot of these top teams because it's kind of becoming like a 2.5 roster instead of a 3-man roster. No offense to North, but I just don't think he's up to the level of these other players. I think he's at the level of like a 10th through 12th team. And I think that's going to betray them just a tiny bit, but hopefully not enough to get them knocked out of playoffs. And then above them at Mizzou. This is my kind of hot take of this predictions. Bubs, Frostbite, Exodia, I think are actually going to do really well together. I think that this Mizzou roster is going to crush it. They got, I want to say like 10th in like basically a 3-way tie in the fall, and that was with Crims instead of Bubs. I think Bubs is a decently better player, and especially with Oklahoma Christian having that weakness now, and all these other teams either having weakness or just new roster. I think Mizzou's going to take advantage. Granted, this is a new third for the roster as well, but I think that Mizzou's already locked in, and I think they can really take it to these teams. I'm expecting Mizzou to do better than most people think. Not as good as Columbia though, which is literally just Columbia white or Columbia whatever they were, blue Cougars. Top Columbia, Columbia silver, mash them together. That's this current Columbia. So they're going to do pretty well, but not as well as they may have would done if Cam was on the team. He's now in the East on Davenport. Then third, I have Maryville. Um, this is a solid roster. We saw them a little bit in the spring. Honestly, I think that it's between third and second place for who's going to get second. I think it's going to be a really tight race with Columbia maybe just falling a little bit behind unless one of them takes like a weird loss. Maybe both of them take a weird loss. Maryville, though, I do have third because second I have St. Edwards, and it just went straight to Boise State as well, which that's honestly fine. Boise State's first. Who would have guessed that the roster that went 45-6 in the fall would be first again? St. Edwards and Maryville, though, are going to be really contentious with each other. Columbia, I think, just going to tag along. Mizzou and Oklahoma State, I think, are really going to be just dragged in the back. Honestly, I just don't see any other team besides Mizzou filling like that sixth spot. But I think Oklahoma State or Oklahoma Christian should be like a solid playoff spot. And then that sixth spot in the West is going to be really contentious. I mean, granted, I think Mizzou's like a solid take for it, but Oregon, San Diego State, Kansas, Borregos, Lubbock Christian, even you might even get like Colorado and UT Dallas. Like it's going to be really a lot of fighting for it, but by the end of the first week, I think honestly we might know who's not going to get it. At least there's going to be saw a few teams knocked out of that race instantly. That is all I have. Again, let me know comments down below what you think. Let me know about that Mizzou pick. Am I getting a little out there, a little too hot take? Am I going insane? Probably. That's okay though. We're going to be back next week and hopefully the week after. Hopefully, I'm going to do this the entire time during summer series. I know I have a problem with that, but that's what we got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out.